Welcome! Cheap, expensive, good value, bad value. I want to start by sharing with you what my all-time investment hero says, even though it doesn't really do property, Warren Buffett. He says, price is what you pay, value is what you get. One of the most frequent questions I get is, should I buy this property? Should I buy that property? So I thought, well, let's have a look at this Savills report, because this is global cities. And what we've got in this report is the price per square meter to buy it, and then in the same currency, how much does it cost per square meter to rent it? We need to work out the yield. So let's just do it once. And I want to do it for, I'm just going to pick a random one here. I'm going to do it for Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is £72.60 per square meter. So if I want to turn that into a yield, I need to take the monthly rent, multiply it by 12, so that's what I'm getting in a year, and then divide it by the capital value per square meter. For this one, I've got 72.60 times 12 equals 871 euros, in this case, per square meter per year. Now I need to divide that by the capital value. So divide by 38,100 equals 0.00228. So in other words, to turn that into a percentage, I know it's multiplied by 100. Hope you're following this basic maths. So it's 2.28%. So if I put an amount of money into Hong Kong, the amount of square meters that would buy me, the income I would get each year is equivalent to bank interest of 2.28%. So in other words, if I didn't put the money into the property, in this case Hong Kong, but I put it into Barclays or JP Morgan or something, and they gave me 3% interest, I would actually be getting more percent interest in the bank than in this property. So you might think, well, that's a pretty stupid idea. Why would you do that, Paul? Well, number one, Hong Kong is not necessarily the best value place in the world to invest. But number two, don't forget you get the capital appreciation. The value of the property goes up over time. So in Monaco, the figures are 51,400 capital value per square meter. Monaco is the most expensive real estate on the planet, but the rent, not that much more. So the rent in Hong Kong is 72 per square meter. In Monaco, it's 108. So let's call it 50% more. But the capital value is a little bit less than 50% more. You'll get a better return in Monaco than you would typically in Hong Kong. Work all those figures out and see which international city you would invest in. Spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you the answer. I don't invest in any of them. I've just bought 6 apartments, brand new build apartments in Birmingham, in the United Kingdom. These properties are round about £300,000 each. And if I divide that by the number of square meters, so let's do that calculation with you to get it in, exactly the same as we've got with the others. So the capital value is 300,000. There you go. So it's £300,000. But as long as you keep the units for rent and capital value the same, it doesn't matter because it's just a percentage. So how many square meters are they? They're about 80 square meters each. So if I then divide that by 80, that gives me a capital value per square meter of 3,750. If I now calculate the rent on an annual basis, it's £2,000 a month. I'm keeping the numbers simple. It's actually a little bit more than that. £2,000 a month times 12 is 24,000. So I get £24,000 a year. So if I also divide that by 80, 24,000 divided by 80 equals 300. So I'm getting £300 rent per square meter, and the capital value is 3,750. So if I now do that as a percentage, divide 3,750 equals 8. Or let me do it properly for you. Multiply by 100, same as the rest, 8%. So you can quickly see that buying these apartments in Birmingham, I'm getting an 8% yield versus the figure we worked out for Hong Kong was 2.2%. You buy the right property in the right place for investment, for people to rent from you. Now we're not talking about, is it expensive or is it cheap? We're talking about, is it good value, which is what Warren Buffett says. So that block of 6 that we're buying in Birmingham is an 8% yield. Now, it's clearly kicking the pants of every single one of these global cities in this Savills report, isn't it? It's massacring them. Nothing on this list even gets halfway to that kind of investment yield. So what other things should you be thinking about when it comes to, shall I buy this property or that property? Well, demand. JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, another big commercial agent, have said that their estimation, not my estimation, is that the property prices in Birmingham are going to go up by 19% over the next 3 years. So that £300,000 capital cost, I want to cheat a little bit, just keep the numbers easy so I can do it in my head. Let's call it 20%. So you start off with a property at 300,000. 3 years from now, if JLL are right, and I believe them, it'll be 20% more. So 20% of 300,000 is £60,000. So you'd be making an 8% investment yield on your property per square meter, or per property in fact. You're also picking up a 20% capital increase over 3 years. So if you take that capital increase and you divide it by 3, is 6.66. So my total return is my investment yield of 8% plus my 6.66, which is 14.66%. Now that is getting to be a serious yield. Now if I take the same thing in Monaco, look at these apartments. So these are just some apartments from, estate agents' windows here in Monaco. So let's do the calculation just to finish this brain exercise off for Monaco, because I know what the capital appreciation was for last year. So for Monaco, the figures are €108.50 per square meter times 12. So that's 1,300 per square meter divided by 51,400 gives me 2.5%. Now, according to Savills, the capital increase in Monaco last year was 0.9%. So if I add 2.5 and 0.9, I get a total of 3.4%. If you've got £1 million or £10 million, your choice now is, do you want to put it into Monaco, which last year showed a rental yield of 2.5%, and a capital growth of 0.5, so that's total 3.4, or do you want to put it somewhere like Birmingham where you get a total return of 14.4? That's not even close, is it? But there's some other things you need to think about when it comes to the world of property and property investment. And it's things like, can I leverage? So let's pretend you've got 10 million euros and you want to buy some real estate here in Monaco. Well, the best mortgage you're going to get is 50%, renewable every 3 years. So is Monaco very friendly when it comes to borrowing money to buy property? Well, not really, because most people here are pretty wealthy. So many people here would just be buying cash, or they'll be using something called a Lombard loan. So they don't really use traditional mortgages. In the UK or in the United States, or in many other places in Europe, you could get a loan of 60, 70, 80% now of the property value. So your 10 million, whatever they are, dollars, let's say, in the United States, you're going to be able to buy probably $100 million worth of investment property. So the point is, you can get many more properties for the same amount of money. So let's say you took £10 million, you bought £40 million worth of property up in Birmingham, but the 75% of it is going to cost you, say, 5%. So on your deposit, on your 10 million, you're going to get a 15% yield. And on the borrowed money, you're going to get a 10% yield. So the weighted average of that is 45 divided by 4 is 11 and a bit. So you're going to get an 11% return on 40, 50 million versus potentially 3 or 4% return on the 10 million, because you can't really gear it. You can't leverage it in many countries. So I know this week's Money Matters has been a bit more technical, but I want you to remember some key things. Work out the investment cost per square meter. How much rent do you then get per square meter per month, typically? Times that by 12. So your full year's rent divided by the capital cost is going to give you an investment yield. So when property investors talk about yield, that's it. It's just the annual rent divided by the acquisition cost. Add on the capital value, increase or decrease. Think about mortgages. There is no such thing as expensive or cheap property. There's good value or bad value. That's it. So I just want to finish off by talking about inflation really briefly. Many Brits, for instance, go to Turkey on holiday. They fall in love with Turkey. I can understand that. Fantastic sea views. And I can get a really good investment yield. But then the Turkish lira goes and depreciates by 50% against the pound. So you've spent $1 million on your holiday villa, but when you want to turn it back into pounds again, 1 year later, it's only worth $500,000. That's what inflation does. And that's the basket of things that you need to think about when you're considering where should I invest from a financial point of view. Hope you've enjoyed this week's technical edition of Money Matters. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next time.